Joe Budden threatens to pull up to Rory and Mal's live show.
I'll be there in December, though.
What's December? The show?
The live show.
Yeah. On to the meet and greet, too.
How do you feel about Rory and Mal? 300 episodes coming soon.
I don't.
That's right, y'all. On a Twitter space, Joe Budden said that he was gonna pull up to the Rory and Mal live show in New York. For those of you that don't know, Rory and Mal have been on a bit of a run. They made it to their second contract. They also seem to be one of the leading voices on the Drake-Kendrick beef, and they are headed to their 300th episode, which, coincidentally, seems to be matching up with the time they are going on tour. Now, this is a big deal considering many thought that the two would collapse without the stewardship of the A-Mike himself, Joe Budden. But here's the thing. They have a show in New York City around December, and Joe Budden is saying that he will pull up. Now, is this a real threat, or is this just Joe Budden doing his toxic ex thing? You know, knocking on the door, letting them know, hey man, I'm here. I see you. What's going on? What's up?
What could have been different, Mr. Walker? You should have allowed nature to take its course.
So let me the house!
And I think it's more that I don't see Joe Budden actually pulling up to the show just because, you know, all these guys are making good amounts of money podcasting, and I don't think there's any friction that is real. I do think there's hurt feelings, there's bruised egos, and a lot of other things going on behind the scenes. And a lot of these guys that you guys claim, you know, a lot of people be like, Danny, move on. People want to move on from this. But the principal parties haven't moved on, so therefore I'm not moving on. And we'll see how this goes. I do think that Joe still harbors animosity about how that situation truly messed up his rebrand. Like, I truly believe that rebrand was so close to happening. Remember, Joe was like, oh my God, he's for the creators. Joe really looks out for his people. Joe really is different than the guy who got run down on by Wu-Tang, or the guy who was always just known for dating really good-looking women. He's actually doing what's right this time. And then the breakup happened, and everybody was upset. Everybody was angry and felt betrayed, not just by Joe, but by all parties involved. A lot of people started to look at Rory and Mal different. There was Joe Budden's side of the fan base that mobilized against Rory and Mal, saying that, you know, they were two writers, hangers-ons that really didn't know their place in the ecosystem, and as a result, it made the podcast lose some of the allure that it had in the beginning when they kind of knew their place. That was what people were saying. As far as Joe, we all know that it just fed into the worst narratives about his life, and people were looking to believe that he was just a bad person, and the Rory and Mal breakup did that. But let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe Joe Budden will actually pull up to the Rory and Mal meet and greet to say hello to his former business partners who went awry after a bad contract negotiation, or accusations of thievery and inflating expenses so you didn't have to pay out properly? Let me know what you think. I also wanted to end this video by highlighting that these spaces are becoming problematic. And the reason they're problematic, and I know from firsthand experience that, you know, they create the illusion of camaraderie, community. And sometimes you do actually build camaraderie and community with a certain subset of people. But for the most part, I think, as evidenced by members of the JBP, it can kind of create a perception of how you view reality, and in return, change everything for you. I mean, look at Ish. Ish really thinks people are speaking about him all day long on the spaces. And that's not really the case. That's not the case at all. Most people, just from my experience, they're really just talking about nothing most of the time. I'm talking about like 50% of the time, it's nothing. And then when it's about the show, the majority of people are talking about Joe and his antics. Also, Queen's Flip, because, you know, he's just always the center of attention as a result of how he conducts himself online. Melissa Ford also up there because of, just any pretty woman is going to get a lot of people talking about her. You're going to have the baddies that like her. You're going to have the baddies that hate her. You're going to have the ugly women that don't like her. You're going to have the ugly women that look to her for aspirational things. You're going to have the guys who think she's amazingly beautiful. You're going to have the guys who think she's ugly. She is up there. Joe Budden flipped Melissa Ford. Now, Ish is a big part. He's a distant fourth to me, though. Like, when I look at the spaces that the JBTV After Hours does, to me, Ish is definitely distance. But what I do think is happening is that members of the show are cohabitating with some of the folks from the spaces. That's right. These guys, they're in people's DMs. They're talking through the back channels. The people sending them clips are the people who be on the spaces. The people telling them about what's happening are the people who be on the spaces. All of these folks are using their D-level, C-level, Z-level celebrity, and they're feeling themselves. And as a result, they're getting too close to the fire. The only person who should be on spaces is really Joe. Largely because he wants to be on spaces and loves it. He also has the ability to not let it consume him. Or at least he's developed the ability. The other people, they can't take constant feedback. Hell, they can't even take feedback from Joe Budden and Ian. They get hurt by that. And that's the thing. The only real feedback that's happening with the Joe Budden podcast is happening on Twitter Spaces. That's it. Nowhere else. The Spaces allows for real input on how you're performing. But when it gets too close, when people get too hurt by the show, like when they start attacking people online. That's why Ice has to stay away from the spaces, because he can't take that feedback. He can't take the feedback on the show either, because whenever somebody talks about how he pods, he tries to avoid a conversation about that. He tries to hide from it. He tries to run from it. Ish, he sees the fire. He knows the fire is burning. He gets close and then he gets burned. But I have it on good authority that the B mics of the show are getting a little too close to the spaces. And it's time to distance yourself, because you can't take it. Anyway, that's my video for today. Follow me on Instagram to Stop TV. Follow me on Twitter to Stop TV. Earlier in the video, I was talking about Joe Budden threatening to pull up to Rory and Mal's live show. He said that on a space. I don't know if he will, but it's a possibility. Maybe he wants to go there for love. Maybe he wants to end the beef. I don't know. I think he might be using this to engineer more interest in his show. And by the end of December, he will probably take more shots at Rory and Mal. And we will see how this goes. This is Danny from The Stop. Peace.